But the Riff Raff Arts Collective is really a collective of various entities. We planted roots here on Mercer Street in 2006, and the building that we're sitting in right now, the room upstairs became kind of like an epicenter for our creative community. Robert and I had been organizing. We started with Culture Fest, World Music and Arts Festival, in 2004. And we were also running open mic nights and had started an Earth Day Festival. And so we were like renting city parks and coffee houses and various venues at the time. And we just kind of knew that we wanted our own space. And back when I was in school, I had kind of been friends with some people from the art department, and one particular friend had described to me this space that she was involved in. It was like a collaborative workspace for artists, and I got really tuned into the notion of having a place where like performing artists and visual artists and all kinds of artists could kind of come together and share resources and tools and create together. And so I had been kind of like focused on that idea. And I remember when Robert and I first met, I explained that to him. And so we sort of started to focus on that notion of having a space like that. And so when the opportunity presented itself in 2006, we sort of dove into the space and set out to create something like that.
How did the opportunity present itself?
Well, we had been just sort of pondering downtown for a while. We started in Hinton, actually, in Summers County. And I had been organizing an open mic night there with this poet and songwriter I had met. And the person who owned the building at the time just sort of asked us if we wanted to take over that space. And so we started an open mic night, but I don't think the town was quite ready for that sort of change yet. There were a lot of young people with like mohawks and stuff hanging out on the street.
Right.
There were people in the town that kind of like bucked up.
Sure.
And it just wasn't easy for us to be there. And so we decided to start searching here in Princeton. And we just were really eyeing the downtown and looked up and down the street, and we found this building like a diamond in the rough. And so at first we were renting places, and never even pondered the idea of being able to own a building. But my dad and my sister were kind of eyeing Princeton at the same time, and my dad asked us if we wanted to kind of team up and pool all of our resources together and get a building. It never would have occurred to me before, so I was like, my mind was kind of blown at first at the prospect, because a lot of times what happens is artists will plant roots in a place like this and they'll transform it, and then they'll get priced out and have to leave. And so the notion of being able to have ownership of a building and not be able to be priced out of it was really attractive.
All of these chairs, when you walk in here, obviously it's a creative space. You just come in and you want to make something. What was the first thing that you all started working on, like when you moved in? So
we had our eyes on the retail space downstairs as an art gallery.
Right.
And at the time, we had a really wonderful friend named Dina Brown. She was a potter, just a beautiful human being. And we had all kind of decided that Dina would focus on the gallery downstairs, and we would focus our energy up here on creating the performance space. And Robert would collaborate. We were all on collaboration on the whole big picture of it. But Dina was kind of taking the reins on the gallery downstairs. And we set out to create the room upstairs. We lost Dina in 2007. And it was so sad to see her go. She left a major impact on this place. She had an accident in Pipestone State Park. So sad. She was on a golf outing with her friends and family, and tragically, she fell.
Oh,
it was so sad to lose her. She was just a absolute joy, an extremely talented person, had huge circles of friends. But she left a pretty lasting impact on this place, and her creative and artistic legacy, really shows itself here. She was the first person who told me that if we wanted to see the kind of transformation that we were looking at, like a creative transformation, that I needed to get involved with like city council and civic bodies and municipal operations. And so she actually kind of inspired me and cued me into that whole side of things.
It just sounds like it's meant to be, like everything's just falling into place. And is it getting easier to promote the grassroots district now that it's starting to catch on, easier than it when you first started?
It is. It was like moving mountains in the beginning, and everybody told us we were crazy, and we knew exactly what it was going to be. We didn't think it was going to take 15 years, honestly. We thought it would take about 5 years to do what we've done in 15, but it was like having to convince people constantly that this wasn't crazy and this was possible. And now as more and more people catch on, it's like kind of tumbling forward, more and more momentum, and all it's bigger than the sum of its parts now. So it's not just us, like as Mercer Street evangelists, it's like all the business owners and all the people having their different conversations out into the community. So it's just snowballed in a really positive way.
Right. And you're kind of like the unofficial mayor of Grassroots Street. Has that kind of like, obviously you aren't elected to that position, but you're kind of are. That's who you are. So how did that evolve? Like, how did you just start building this name? Which you're mentioning networking and how important that is. Is that kind of how it grew? Just putting your name out there and talking to people.
Yeah, like leadership for me is just about like doing what needs to be done. It's not about like, I want to be in charge of everything. It's just like in order for something to move forward, you do what needs to be done. And I like to think about flocks of birds too. They each take turns sort of like leading the flock. And if I don't have information about a certain subject, I'm going to defer to the person who has expertise in that area and let them lead and follow their lead. I've been kind of like a catalyst, like a fire starter type. I'm a Leo, and I think that that's just like naturally who I am. It's just to sort of like start things and take initiative. And I'm grateful that people, will kind of like follow and when it's time for me to lead, but I also really love to be able to, follow when someone else wants to take the lead. But I just kind of did what needs to be done to make it happen. And when we planted roots here, we had to create the scene for us to exist within. And now that it's all bigger than the sum of its parts, like we're about ready to make that transition where we can like operate within the scene instead of having to create the scene. Mm-hmm. And
so you're going to start fleshing it and working on your business now, finally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And doing like creating and like being an artist within the scene. Because we're constantly, for years, we were creating space for art to happen within and creating conditions in which creativity can exist. And now it's like we're ready to exist within that.
That's exciting because now it's like, it's time for the fun stuff.
Yes.
Which, it's all fun, but like, me being a creative myself, like, I would imagine how I would feel if I would not have time to do what I love to do.
It's been really challenging. And honestly, like it's been super frustrating and like we've wanted to give up a few points. It's just unhealthy because we're doing way too many things. And it's like the vision is so big and it's nobody's fault but our own for envisioning what we have and creating this like big thing. And we just don't have the capacity at this. We haven't. So it's been Robert doing the work of like a 10-person production team all by himself. And me managing, I'm probably doing about the job of like, what should be about a 5-person staff. And Robert's work is just heavier than mine. His is like super high skilled labor. And it's like a lot of heavy lifting, like literally heavy lifting. And so we're at that point now where we're ready to grow our team so that we can more efficiently do these things. We don't want to stop doing any of the things that we're doing. We just want to build the team that does it.